The ballroom shimmered under crystal chandeliers, every surface drenched in gold and champagne light. The stage was framed with banners showing the product I had spent 5 years designing. My product. The one that had cost me late nights, canceled vacations, strained relationships, and more tears than I would ever admit. Tonight was supposed to be my night. People from all departments filled the room, dressed in cocktail attire, laughing, clinking glasses, congratulating each other on our shared success. But beneath their smiles, I could see it. Pride, relief, anticipation. Everyone knew a big announcement was coming. The promotion, the recognition, the moment of truth, my moment. I stood near the stage, smoothing the fabric of my emerald dress, reminding myself to breathe. My heart thudded against my ribs, louder than the music, louder than the chatter. For 5 years, I had built this project from an idea sketched on a napkin into a fully patented, market-ready innovation. There were nights I slept in the office because going home felt like wasted time. There were mornings I stared at myself in the mirror, barely recognizing the exhausted woman looking back. But I believed it would be worth it. That this would finally be the moment everything paid off. My boss, Arthur Reynolds, stood behind the podium now, tapping his champagne glass with a fork. The room quieted. A hush fell. Heavy, expectant. My stomach tightened. He smiled broadly, scanning the crowd like a king preparing to make a royal decree. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice booming with practiced confidence. "Tonight isn't just about a launch. It's about excellence, leadership, future potential." My breath halted. Future potential. He'd used those same words in my last evaluation, right before telling me I was the frontrunner for the senior development director position. People glanced at me. Some smiled, some nodded. A few whispered, "It's going to be her." Arthur continued. This person showed effort, determination, and a fresh spark we couldn't ignore. Fresh spark? What did that? And so, he lifted a small velvet box. "I am thrilled to announce that our new director of innovation is..." Time stretched. My pulse rang in my ears. "Michelle Carter." My head snapped up. Michelle, 22, 2 months at the company, couldn't read half the system documents without asking for explanations. Michelle, who blushed now as applause erupted, her cheeks matching her lipstick. She walked toward Arthur while people clapped like they'd witnessed history. I stood frozen. Inside, everything crashed. Anger, disbelief, humiliation. But on the outside, I stayed perfectly still. My fingers curled around my champagne glass so tightly I thought it might shatter. Arthur handed her the box. She opened it. A gold company pin glittered from inside, the symbol given only to top executives. Then Arthur turned to me. "Oh, and Daisy?" His tone shifted. Lighter, dismissive. "You were such a helper during this process. We didn't forget you." He reached into his pocket and held out a $20 gift voucher to a coffee shop. "For your effort," he said with a smile meant to look generous. Somewhere in the crowd, someone laughed. Another snorted. Someone whispered, $20? Seriously? But I smiled. Calm, steady, unbothered. Because while they were busy applauding Michelle, I was already done with them. I lifted my chin, took the voucher between 2 fingers, and said clearly, loud enough for the nearest tables to hear, "Thank you, Arthur. This is thoughtful." Michelle looked uncomfortable now, eyes bouncing between me and Arthur like she'd stepped into a fire she didn't start. I reached into my handbag and pulled out a sealed envelope. Crisp, deliberate. I handed it to Arthur. "For you," I said softly. He blinked, confused, then tore it open. As his eyes scanned the first line, his face drained of color. Then red returned. Fast, violent. His voice shattered through the room. "Daisy, tell me you're joking." Everyone stopped. Music died. Conversations froze. Heads turned. I held his furious gaze with a calmness I hadn't felt in years. "I don't joke about my future," I said. The letter in his trembling hand wasn't just a resignation. It was the first domino. And Arthur, along with everyone in that glittering ballroom, was about to learn exactly what happens when you underestimate the wrong woman. Because I hadn't spent 5 years building something for them. I had built something bigger, something mine. And this was only the beginning. For a moment, no one moved. The ballroom that just seconds ago was full of laughter and applause now sat in stunned silence, thick and suffocating. Arthur stood frozen, holding my resignation letter like it was a live grenade. His jaw clenched, his nostrils flared, and his voice trembled. Not with sadness, but with rage. "You can't just walk away," he hissed under his breath, trying to maintain composure as dozens of eyes watched. I kept my smile polite, steady. I already did. A few nearby employees exchanged shocked glances. Someone covered their mouth to hide a grin. And then, quietly, so quietly I almost questioned whether I heard it, someone clapped. Just once. But one clap is all it takes to break a spell. A second joined, then another, until small, hesitant applause rippled across the room. Not loud, not bold, but just enough to make Arthur's ears burn. His face reddened. He leaned forward. "Daisy, can we speak privately?" His voice was tight, strained. I nodded once. Of course. I followed him toward a hallway near the back of the ballroom. The moment we were out of view, the mask fell. His polished executive voice vanished, replaced by something raw and furious. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he demanded. "Leaving," I said simply. "No." He jabbed a finger toward the ballroom. "You can't do this here. Not tonight. Not after everything we invested in you." I raised an eyebrow. "Everything you invested in me?" "Arthur, I worked unpaid weekends. I fixed errors your engineering team couldn't solve. I pitched investors who thought I was just an assistant until I started speaking. Don't rewrite history now." His mouth opened, but nothing came out. I continued, calm but direct. "You knew I was expecting that promotion. You encouraged it. You let me believe it. And then you replaced 5 years of work with a face that looks better in photos." His jaw twitched. "Michelle earned her position. She's been here 8 weeks. And she brings something this company needs. Energy, relatability, youth. You're good, Daisy, but you're not what we need going forward." There it was, said plainly. Not talented enough. Not flashy enough. Not new enough. Just not enough. A strange calm washed over me. "Then it seems we agree," I said softly. "You don't need me." His eyes narrowed. "You think you can threaten me with leaving? You think your departure changes anything?" I didn't flinch. "I don't need to threaten you. Time will do that for me." He barked a humorless laugh. "You're replaceable. Everyone is replaceable." I leaned in just slightly. Some replacements cost more than others. That struck him. Hard. He swallowed, shoulders tight. "You're making a mistake. In 6 months, you'll be begging for a recommendation." "I won't need one." A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face, but only for a beat. "Fine," he spat. "But when this industry shuts doors in your face, remember tonight." "Oh, I will," I said, "but not the way you think." Before he could respond, the hallway door swung open and Michelle stepped out. She looked nervous, clutching her new executive pin like she wasn't sure she deserved it. "Arthur?" she asked. "They're waiting for you to continue the program." He forced a smile, but his voice was brittle. "Be right there." She nodded and glanced at me. "Daisy, I didn't know any of this." I held her gaze. She wasn't my enemy, not really. She was young, ambitious, and oblivious to the politics she'd been dropped into. "I don't blame you," I said quietly. Relief flickered in her expression, followed quickly by guilt. Arthur marched past her without another word. When he was gone, Michelle hesitated before saying softly, "For what it's worth, everyone knows this product is yours." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. She walked back into the ballroom, and I lingered a moment longer, grounding myself. The music resumed. Murmurs filled the air again, but something had shifted. It wasn't just me walking away from them. It was them watching me leave, with uncertainty, curiosity, and something else. Respect. I returned to the room only long enough to grab my coat and purse. As I walked toward the exit, one colleague, Rachel, from finance, touched my arm. "Good for you," she whispered. I nodded once and continued walking. Outside, the night air hit my skin. Cool, sharp, electric. I exhaled deeply, a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding for years. Leaving should have felt terrifying. Instead, it felt like freedom knocking. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. This was the first step toward the life I should have been building all along. And Arthur? He had no idea what was coming next. The morning after the launch felt strangely quiet. No alarms, no rushed emails, no frantic mental checklist waiting for me before my feet even touched the floor. I sat at my kitchen table with a real breakfast, eggs still warm, toast not eaten over a keyboard. And for the first time in years, I wasn't exhausted before the day began. But the peace lasted only a few moments before my phone buzzed, then buzzed again, then again. By the fifth notification, I sighed and reached for it. 17 missed calls, 12 text messages, 3 emails marked urgent, all from the same person, Arthur. The subject lines read like stages of panic. "We need to talk. Call me immediately. This isn't professional. Daisy, respond. We need access to your files." There it was. Access. For years, every critical blueprint, version log, patent update, and testing documentation had passed through me. Not because I demanded control, but because no one else ever bothered to learn the system. They were used to me being there, silently fixing, silently leading, silently holding everything together. And now I was gone. My lips curved, not into a smug smile, but something quieter. Something that came from finally realizing just how badly they had underestimated me. I ignored the messages and got ready for the day. Not to go to work, but to meet someone I hadn't spoken to in a long time. At 10:30 a.m., I walked into a small cafe a few blocks from my apartment. The place smelled like roasted beans and warm pastries. A barista glanced up and nodded politely. A man sat in the corner, mid-40s, sharp eyes behind wireframe glasses, suit jacket draped on the chair beside him. He looked up as I approached, then stood. "Daisy," he said with a small smile. "You actually came." "Of course," I answered, extending my hand. "Good to see you, Adrian." We sat. Adrian Chen was the former CTO of the company, brilliant, respected, and one of the only leaders I had ever genuinely admired. He left 2 years ago after clashing with Arthur over ethics and direction. When he resigned, the company shifted. Not drastically at first, but subtly. That was when the shortcuts began. The compromises, the politics. The decline had started long before last night's humiliation. "So," Adrian said, leaning back, "I heard about the spectacle." My eyebrow lifted. "Already?" "Oh, Daisy," he chuckled. "The tech world travels faster than any news outlet. Word is, Arthur had a meltdown after you left." I blinked once, slowly. "Meltdown?" "Full collapse. It can't find your encrypted workflow. The research files are locked. And apparently the patent transition schedule was never finalized." I let out a breath. Half sigh, half disbelief. "That wasn't negligence," I said. "Arthur told me to wait until after the promotion announcement. He wanted it to be symbolic." Adrian's expression sharpened. "And instead, he handed the project to someone who doesn't know the difference between a prototype log and a finalized architecture." Silence stretched. Finally, I nodded. He clasped his hands together. "Daisy, I didn't ask you here to gossip. I asked because I have something for you." I waited. As soon as I left the company, I started building something new, he said. A startup. Not rushed, not reckless. Something clean. Something ethical. Something built the right way. I could feel my pulse shift, not faster, but clearer. I've been following your work, he continued. You have talent, vision, and most importantly, grit. I've been waiting for the moment you realized you deserved better. My breath caught. Then he said it. I want you to join me. Not as an employee, as a co-founder. For a moment, everything around me blurred. The clinking cups, the quiet chatter, the hiss of steaming milk. All I could hear was the echo of one thought. Co-founder. Not a helper, not a placeholder, not a shadow. A partner. I know what you sacrificed at your last job, Adrian said quietly. But I also know you're the kind of person who doesn't just build products. His eyes met mine. You build futures. I didn't speak right away. Not because I doubted the offer, but because it felt like the first time someone truly saw me. I'll need time to think, I finally said. Of course, he replied. But Daisy? Yes? You're worth far more than a promotion. I exhaled slowly, feeling something loosen inside me, a weight I'd carried for far too long. When I walked out of the cafe, sunlight hit my face. The day felt different, open, unwritten. My phone vibrated again. Another text from Arthur. We need you back. Call me. Immediately. I locked the screen. Not yet. He wasn't ready for my answer, but soon, very soon, he would learn exactly what it cost to treat loyalty as disposable. Because I wasn't the one losing anything anymore. He was. By Wednesday morning, the situation had shifted from inconvenient to chaotic, at least for Arthur's company. My phone continued vibrating throughout the morning like an angry wasp trapped in a jar. This time, the messages weren't just from Arthur. They were from people I used to work beside every day. Daisy, do you still have access to the test environment? We can't locate the latest version. Do you have a moment? We need clarification on the rollout timeline. Hey, just checking in. Are you really gone? Then came the one that made me pause. We need your help. Client review in 2 hours. No one can explain your design. I stared at the message for a long moment. The irony was almost painful. 2 weeks earlier, I'd sat in a leadership meeting practically begging for assistance, asking for someone to be trained as backup, requesting more structure, more support. Arthur had waved it off. His exact words echoed clearly in my head. We don't need to waste resources. You've got it handled. And now? Without me, nothing was handled. Still, a part of me, the responsible part, the part that hated watching people fail, considered replying. Not for Arthur, for the team. People who had worked late with me. People who had supported me when upper management didn't. People who weren't responsible for how things unfolded. But then another thought followed, steadier and colder. If I step in now, nothing changes. They learn nothing. So I put the phone face down on the table, exhaled, and turned back to the document Adrian had sent me. A full outline of his new company's blueprint, vision, and early projections. It wasn't just interesting. It was promising. And for the first time in years, I could see a future that wasn't built on someone else's approval. At noon, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole stood someone I never expected. Rachel, from finance. One of the few people who never treated my ideas like background noise. When I opened the door, she managed a small, apologetic smile. I'm so sorry for just showing up, she said. But I really needed to talk to you. I stepped aside. Come in. She sat at my dining table while I made tea. Her leg bounced beneath the chair, a subtle sign of nerves. Finally, she spoke. It's bad, Daisy. Really bad. How bad? She exhaled slowly. The investors scheduled a surprise audit. The product is supposed to go live next month, and no one can answer their technical questions. A beat passed. Some of them asked directly where you were. I swallowed, not because it hurt, but because it confirmed what I already knew. They hadn't valued me, but they had depended on me. Michelle's struggling, Rachel continued. She's trying, she really is, but she's lost. And Arthur, he's furious, at everyone, but mostly at you. Because I left? I asked. No, she said softly, because he finally realizes what he had. Silence settled. Then she added, he told the board you'd return. My eyebrows lifted. Did he? She nodded. He's convinced this is temporary. He thinks you're just emotional. There it was. The dismissive narrative so many women knew too well. Emotional, overreacting, sensitive, never logical, never strategic. My jaw tightened. Rachel reached into her bag and pulled out a sealed envelope. He asked me to give you this if I saw you. I didn't take it. Instead, I asked, have you read it? She hesitated, then nodded. I shouldn't have. But yes. What does it say? She wet her lips, choosing her words. It's a job offer, a higher title, more pay. He wants to negotiate. I laughed, quiet, humorless. So now my value exists. Rachel lowered her gaze. I think he finally sees it. No, I corrected gently. He sees the consequences. She looked at me, emotion flickering behind her eyes. Are you really done, Daisy? The question wasn't judgment. It was fear. Fear of what shifting power meant. I leaned back, letting the quiet stretch before answering. Yes, I'm done. For a moment, Rachel didn't move. Then she nodded, slowly, thoughtfully. I think, she said, voice nearly a whisper. You're right. I looked at her. You deserve better, too. Her eyes widened, startled. I continued. You're smart. Capable. You've held that finance department together longer than any of them realize. A faint, startled laugh escaped her. Nobody ever says that. Well, I said, maybe that's the problem. She exhaled, stood and gave me a long look. A look full of respect, fear, hope, and something else. Possibility. If you need me, she said, I'm here. And then, almost as an afterthought, and if you and Adrian really build something, call me. When she left, I stood alone in the quiet apartment, but I didn't feel alone. I felt aligned. Leaving hadn't just changed my circumstances. It was beginning to change others. Silently, quietly, powerfully. And Arthur? He was only now realizing the truth. When you build your empire on someone else's labor, you should never assume they'll stay forever. Because eventually, they walk away, and the cracks begin to show. On Friday morning, 1 week after the launch party, I walked into the lobby of Arthur's company for what I knew would be the last time. Not because I'd been summoned, though there were more missed calls and emails than I cared to count, but because I wanted closure on my terms. The receptionist stiffened when she saw me, then forced a polite smile. Good morning, Daisy. He's expecting you. Of course he was. I walked past the security gates, past the glass meeting rooms, past coworkers who tried to pretend they weren't watching. Some nodded, some avoided eye contact, and some looked at me with something close to admiration. Power shifted silently, and everyone felt it. When I reached Arthur's office, the door was already open. He stood behind his desk, shoulders tense, trying, and failing, to look composed. Daisy. His voice was clipped, controlled. Come in. I did. He gestured for me to sit. I remained standing. He cleared his throat, then handed me a printed sheet. Formal letterhead, bold title. Revised offer. I skimmed it. Higher salary, executive role, equity, decision authority. Everything I should have received 5 years ago. And everything he swore I didn't deserve. I want you back, he said, finally breaking the silence. You built this. You belong here. There it was. The apology without the word sorry. I appreciate the offer, I said evenly, but I'm not coming back. His jaw tightened. You're acting out of pride. No, I replied calmly. I'm acting out of clarity. He tried again, voice strained. You're walking away from stability, from everything you worked for. I met his eyes. I'm walking away from being underestimated. There's a difference. For a moment, there was nothing but quiet, the heavy kind that exposes truth. Then his posture changed. Defensive. Cornered. This is a mistake, he muttered. You're giving up your future. A slow breath left my lungs. No, Arthur, I'm taking it back. I placed the offer letter on his desk, unread beyond the basics, and slid it toward him. And one more thing, I added. You don't get to rewrite the narrative. I didn't leave because I was emotional. I left because you made it clear loyalty meant nothing here. His face paled. You can replace roles, I said softly, but you can't replace respect. And with that, I turned and walked out. By the time I reached the elevator, something unexpected happened. Someone clapped. Not mockingly, not sarcastically. A single firm clap, then another, then more. By the time the elevator doors closed, half the floor was applauding. Softly. Not as a spectacle, but as acknowledgement. I didn't need a promotion. I had already earned something far more valuable. Self-worth. 3 months later, Adrian and I launched our company. It wasn't glamorous at first. Mismatched furniture, shared desks, walls covered in sketches and strategy notes. But there was energy, purpose, respect. Michelle reached out once, quietly, privately. You were right. I wasn't ready. I'm leaving soon, too. If you ever need someone willing to learn, I'm here. I didn't hold resentment. She wasn't the villain, just another player in a broken system. I replied, when you're ready, reach out. No titles, no shortcuts, just work. She sent back a single sentence. Thank you for not hating me. And I didn't. Because my story wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about growth. 6 months after leaving, I received a text from Rachel. It finally happened. The board removed Arthur. Too many mistakes. Too many clients lost. A long pause. Then another message. Funny how the person he called replaceable is the one no one could replace. I stared at the message for a long moment. Not with satisfaction, but with quiet, steady closure. Arthur had tried to build power on dismissal, ego, and assumption. But power built on disrespect is temporary. Power built on work, integrity, and boundaries? That lasts. On the 1-year anniversary of leaving, I stood in my new office. Glass windows overlooking the city. A desk covered in active projects and future plans. Adrian walked in holding 2 coffees. Ready? He asked. I nodded. We were meeting a new client, one bigger than anything I'd worked on before, one that had chosen us because of my reputation. Not the company's, mine. And as I walked into that meeting room, I realized something. My past wasn't a failure. It was training. Proof that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away. Not to run, not to escape, but to make space for the life you were meant to build.